morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. My name
Hi, I'm Janira. How are you?
is Nera. Good morning. How are you? I hope you're having a
Good.
blessed morning so far.
Yes, everything's good. Thank you.
That's good.
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Miss Zena. Good morning. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. You look all purple.
Thank you.
I'm representing.
Thank you for participating in this very important issue.
You're welcome. No, it's my pleasure.
I appreciate your colleague as well.
Yes.
Participating with us.
Thank you so much. Janira is our director at the Staten Island Family Justice Center. She will be joining in the case that there are questions that are more specific that I may not know.
Okay, that's good to know.
Mm.
Thank you for joining, Janira.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So the reason why I really wanted to put together a domestic violence Zoom this year is because, as you know, the domestic violence rate in the Bronx has risen. And I think it has risen throughout the whole tri-state area. Now, last year on June 1st, 2019, I actually had a day of beautification for the victims of domestic violence. And this was in memory of Lisa Maria Velasquez that was murdered in 2018. So I wanted to bring awareness to this epidemic that is plaguing our community. And to me, we need to address this crucial issue. And when I say address the issue, I've been noticing that issues are being addressed throughout our community, which is just as important. But I think people have forgotten about the families that have lost loved ones due to a domestic violence situation. And so I wanted to bring awareness and let our community know that there are resources out there available to assist them. Because sometimes what seems to happen is that if someone is going through a domestic violence situation, they might, one or two things might happen. They might be embarrassed to let their family members know that they're experiencing a domestic violence situation, or they just don't know what to do or who to call. So that's why I'd reached out to your organization to just shed a light on the services that are available, that if they are in a situation, they can seek help. So one of the questions that I wanted to present to you, or to both of you, is, do abusers show any potential warning signs, especially in the beginning of a relationship? Everything seems to be fine. We call that the honeymoon period. But is there any potential warning signs? So if someone is dating a potential or have maybe suspicions of that person might be a domestic violence abuser, they can then leave the relationship early on, as opposed to investing 1 or 2 years in the relationship, and then it becomes harder to leave.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing and presenting, and we'll definitely share a lot of resources today about where anybody experiencing domestic violence or gender-based violence can reach out to. In regards to your question, so the early warning signs, there are very varying kinds of signs of abuse in an early relationship. And so what we always say is it always stems from the abuser being in control and being in power. For example, it can vary from one partner saying to another that they are experiencing, they're feeling more restricted in who they can call, who they can speak to, feel like they're being watched over by their partner. It always starts to feel, not always, but in times it may start to feel like the partner is caring for me, they're just watching over me. And it's always in a gradual, way of how it may not, it seems from it starting to be seen as being protective to then being more abusive and controlling. And so what a lot of survivors say to us is that they don't know how they got there, just like you said. And the main thing I can say is it starts very gradual. It's all about trying to take control of who they're seeing, what they're doing with their finances, and who they can reach out to, who they can talk. And so just those are the early warning signs that we see in many survivors.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And another question that I have is, what is a percentage of men being abused? Because a lot of times I've been told by men, we are also suffering from domestic violence as well, and no one seems to address that issue.
No, definitely. So men do get abused, and the rate at the FJCs is about 1 in 10 men who come into our FJCs are identified as male. So despite that percentage, we still believe it's higher just because there's a lot of males that do not go report about their abuse. And so there are services at our FJC center, at our family justice centers, and other services that I will happily share later on, where men can definitely reach out to, because abuse does not just, there's no one gender, there's no one background that happens to them. So it's varied across the board.
Okay. And what percentage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans people experience domestic violence?
Due to confidentiality reasons, our FJCs does not track sexual orientation of those of the survivors that come in for intake. So for that, we can't say, but what we can say based on like the Anti-Violence Project is that they've estimated 1 in 10 LGBTQ people do experience sexual assault by their intimate partner. And then the rates in terms of physical violence, domestic and physical violence, stalking is higher in comparison to straight survivors. So it's definitely on the higher scale.
And the services, what type of services do they get? Are they the same services that a person who is straight, who's heterosexual, see the same services if you're lesbian and gay and transgender?
Yes, absolutely. We do not, we offer them all services to anybody, despite their background, despite their sexual orientation. There are also many organizations that are catered to LGBTQ communities. I can share with you, if you would like to share my slides, I can definitely share that with everybody.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Could you disable the screen sharing?
Okay.
It's still not allowing me to share, but I'll just speak to it briefly. So the LGBTQ Anti-Violence Project does have a text feature and a number where you can reach out, and they cater specifically to LGBTQ communities. So if there's an LGBTQ survivor that does not feel comfortable reaching out to a broad organization, then I would suggest the LGBTQ community RAIN. I'll share the contact information in the chat box if I'm not able to. Oh, I'm able to share the screen. 1 second. Here it is.
Okay.
Can you see?
Yes.
Yes. So the LGBTQ Anti-Violence Project, you can call them at 212-714-1141. The Trevor Project, it's at 866-488-7386, and you can also text them by texting START to 678678.
Okay. That's good information to to have.
Yes, definitely.
One of the issues that has been addressed to me personally, and I just feel that if a woman or a man, because I don't want to exclude men, if a woman or a man are going through a domestic violence situation, can they call an organization that would be able to come into their home or wherever they might be at that moment of time and pick them up and bring them into a shelter? Because sometimes what happens is that if your abuser is not home, for example, if they go to work, that might be their opportunity to actually get away, so to speak. Because normally the victim is told, pack a bag, an emergency bag, and put all the essentials in that bag, important paperwork and so on and so forth. But if the abuser is not in the home at that time and they're able to leave right after the abuser goes out to work, is it possible they can pick up the phone, call this organization and say, listen, the abuser just left. I have to get out of here. I want to get out of here today. I think that's why a lot of women and men are very skeptical, especially when there's children involved. They're very skeptical about actually reaching out to these organizations because a lot of times when they call, they get the runarounds. And then they're told, well, we don't have a bed available. You're going to have to go to this location or go to that location. So is there a possibility, might be something that needs to be addressed. Is there a possibility that the city can set up a program that will be able to pick up a domestic violence victim and their children if they call an emergency pickup service? Because I know, ACS, they have the van that drops off the child or the teen at that foster home or the youth center. A program like that needs to be implemented for victims of domestic violence as well.
So in terms of a specific organization that can do the immediate, there isn't just one organization. It's I can share with you our Hope portal right here, where if you look at this link, you can search for multiple organizations that are within your community where you can contact them and explain to them your situation. And there will be a safety plan at the start of when they reach out to ask for help. So from there, they can decipher what is the best for that client and what the client themselves would like to do. Because at some points, sometimes survivors may not want to leave the relationship or want to stay. And so it's really very client-centered. So based on that contact they have with that organization, they can freely decide what they would like to do. And then from there on, if it's in terms of some organizations provide transportation services in this scenario that you provided. And so if it's a matter of driving a client out of the home to something more safer, that is within the means of many organizations. When you click the link, New York City Hope website, I can definitely share this with you after the call as well. You can search the resource directory as seen here.
I see it, yes.
Yeah, and then you can search by borough, Brooklyn, Manhattan. Let's say it's Bronx, since we touched on the premise of it is Bronx. We can search varied criterias, and then a list of organizations will appear, as you can see. And from there, you can contact them, and also just keep in mind, we have the Hope hotline, which is 24/7. As you can see, it's right here, 1-800-6221-4673. So if you would like, you can call that hotline and to just ask them whatever questions you need, ask for anything that even if you're like obviously a first-time person calling and trying to inquire about more information, you can obviously call the Hope line. In an emergency, you can also call 911 or text 911. The city has now enabled civilians to text 911. So, and because of these very, troubling times where many clients may not feel comfortable speaking with somebody over the phone if they are living with their abuser.
Right. I think a lot of concerns for some of the domestic violence abusers is that if they were to call 911 or they were to call the New York City Hope Center, their children will be taken away from them. And I think that if a domestic violence victim knows that they're safe in terms of reporting their abuse and their children would not be put into foster care, they probably will be more willing to reach out and contact these organizations. So I think sometimes a sense of security to let the domestic violence victim know that it's not your fault and we're not going to penalize you by removing your children if you weren't the direct abuser to your child.
Right.
I think that maybe then they probably would be more likely to call for help. So there's a lot of factors and a lot of loopholes that needs to be just strengthened within the domestic violence organizations, because it's one thing to have these services and to make them readily available. But as a parent, you have to sometimes think and wonder, if I do make the phone call, what is the repercussions to my actions? Yes, they do want to get out of that domestic violence situation that they're in, but they're thinking about what's going to happen to my children. Are they going to put my children in foster care? There's so many different scenarios that they encounter. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of domestic violence abusers, well, victims, I should say, stay in that relationship, because they are just afraid. So is there any way that they can be reassured if they were to come forth that they would not be retaliated against if they were to report that they are being abused, and their children will be safe with them? Like they can find placement with their children away from the abuser.
That's a great question, and that's definitely an issue that a worry that many parents do experience. For the family justice centers, we do cater to domestic violence survivors and their children. So the services we provide to the victim, we provide to the children as well. I can't say, Kate, I can't be more specific in terms of explaining what would happen with the children. All I know is that the protections are the same as to the survivors. Janera, if you have anything else to add, I can't say about the intricacies.
Yeah, thank you, Zena. So regarding ACS and making reports, when somebody reaches out to either the hotline or comes into the family justice centers or reaches out to us via phone now because of COVID, a case manager is assigned to them. And that case manager is their hub, their person, their advocate. And that person is going to guide them through the process of, like, you know, if you were to call the police, if police were to come to the house, what would happen? We can't assure that ACS will not remove the children, because, you know, they have a certain job that they play in the situation. However, as an advocate, the advocate can give, you know, guidance to the client, to the survivor, also reach out to ACS and work together in making sure that the ACS worker knows that this person is reaching out for help. This person is protecting their kids and is looking for a safe place. So it's not that this person is, you know, putting their kids in danger or not, you know, taking steps to protect their children.
Right. That is so very important, because as domestic violence victims face their abusers, a lot of times that's one of their concerns. And I think that if we work together very closely with, let's say, New York City PD and housing court, because as we know, abusers are very manipulative. They know how to manipulate housing court, family court, just so they can constantly attack the victim and their children. So we all need to work together as a team.
Yeah.
And don't forget ACS, because you might have an abuser who might contact ACS just to retaliate against that domestic violence victim. Now her back is against the wall because the abuser is telling her or him, well, if you don't do this and you don't do that, I'm going to contact ACS and tell them that you did this and you did that. And they didn't do that. But because they love their children and they don't want to lose their children to foster care, they stay and they endure the pain and they endure the suffering. So I think we need to work as a community to offer more resources, to let the abuser know that they're being watched and they cannot use housing court, family court, New York City PD, the Justice Center to constantly abuse their victims. So are there any warning signs that a domestic violence victim can see so she can safeguard her children? If she's not able to get out at that moment of time, is there anything that she can do while she's in the home just to safeguard herself from being abused, in a sense of the abuser using the courts to abuse her?
Well, one thing about, domestic violence organizations and the Family Justice Center, we don't only work with survivors that are planning to leave their relationship or have left the relationship. We work with everyone who reaches out. They can stay in the relationship if they feel that that's the safest thing to do right now, or that's the best thing for them in their relationship. And we can work with them, giving them information, supporting them in, how to keep their children safe, how to find resources for their children, how to, pack a bag if anything were to happen, how to reach out to either neighbors or friends, in letting them know, maybe not letting them know the whole situation, but letting them know that, if I were to reach out to you, this is something I need you to call 911, or I need you to come to the house and knock, just to, distract my partner at that moment. So we not only work with clients that are leaving the relationship or have left the relationship, we work with clients that stay in the relationship all the time, and have kids, and we're working them and helping them create safety plans and feel empowered to stay in the relationship if they want, or to leave the relationship later on.
Now, are there any counseling available for the abusers?
Zena, I'm going to leave that to you, Zena.
Yeah. So the city is running contracts for abusive partner intervention programs. Some are court mandated, some are court mandated, some are voluntary. So to answer your question about programs, it's also up to the individual themselves if they do want to change and do actually hold accountability for the abuse that's been done. So it goes hand in hand with both the individual and the program as to whether she wants to commit to changing and taking accountability. I mean, it's so hard to pinpoint the cause of why somebody causes harm. So it varies from either their own personal trauma, what they've been taught about relationships, how they've been treated as a youth. And so it varies across the board as to why someone would cause harm. So even providing therapeutic sessions of trying to really engage that individual and try to have them get a deeper understanding of the cause of the root of the harm, and having that individual take ownership of that abuse and be willing to change, because it's always up to that individual if they want to change.
Now, when you mentioned court mandated, what are the stipulations for it to be court mandated? Because as you know, that sometimes in some cases, the courts might mandate that abuser to go to or attend a domestic violence abuse training program so they can be a better parent. What are the criteria for that person to qualify for that court mandated program? If you are a domestic violence abuser, chronic domestic violence abuser.
There's no criteria that we know of. That's something that the district attorney's office and the defense attorney talk about. However, all the family justice centers, we are co-located with the district attorney's office, and we work in collaboration with them. So if the survivor wants us to engage with the district attorney's office, we definitely can engage with them and let them know of the history and let them know of the danger. If this and letting the district attorney know what the survivor wants. Usually the survivor wants them to get counseling, wants, you know, the abusive partner to be mandated to a program. We can't guarantee that that's going to be, you know, mandated, but we can definitely advocate. And we do that all the time.
Well, that's good to know. So if a victim of domestic violence wants to stay in a relationship, been with her partner for years and has hope that their partner will change, can he or she advocate to the courts, asking the court to make their partner go for training?
That's definitely that they can do. It's not guaranteed. You know, every person that is charged with a crime is given an attorney in court. So the attorney is also going to be advising their client on, you know, what plea agreement to take, what things to do. But that's something that we can definitely advocate and help the survivor in feeling empowered in advocating for that. And, you know, we bring in like the history. We let them know what we know. Families are complex and relationships are very complex. And people need help, right? So we are there advocating. And even like Zena said, it could be mandatory or it could be voluntary, sorry, voluntary. And, you know, we can let them know and see if that's something. It doesn't necessarily have to be court mandated. They can go on their own. You know, sometimes people realize like, you know, this has gone too far. I want to stay with my family. I want to get help. I have things going on. Let me go. And they voluntarily go.
Well, that's good to know. And currently, I know there's sex offender registry. Is there a domestic violence registry?
No, there isn't.
Because I think sometimes if a person meets another person and they feel that that potential person will be a good partner, they might want to know if that person has a history. Because within the last couple of years, I've been noticing that the domestic violence in the Bronx has risen. I can't speak on any other borough, but I know here in the Bronx, someone is being murdered. A woman is being killed. And I just don't feel that enough emphasis, enough resources, enough services is being implemented to make sure that women and men are able to check and find out if that person is a potential or is a domestic violence abuser.
Yeah.
I feel that domestic violence abusers just get a slap on the wrist and they're sent out back into the world to re-abuse, re-victimize another human being. And unfortunately, if there's children involved, the children gets caught into that web of destruction. So are there any new services that's being looked into right now that will be able to strengthen the Justice Center in terms of they're implementing new policies to help domestic violence victims and their children?
Regarding a registry, that's not something that is available. I don't know what kind of talks, the city is having with that. But one thing that we have, and in the Bronx especially, is the early victim engagement project. So it's called EVE. And what happens is that anyone who reaches out to NYPD and files a police report and an arrest has been made, someone reaches out to the survivor right away and lets them know what's going to happen next, because you reach out to police and everything happens so quickly and people don't know what's going to happen, like what happens next, when does this person get out? Do I get an order of protection? Do I don't? So the early victim engagement project, someone reaches out to them right away and lets them know, okay, this person has been arrested. This person is waiting for arraignment in criminal court. These are the charges. You will be getting an order of protection. What does an order of protection mean? An ADA, an assistant district attorney, is going to be assigned to this case. That person is going to reach out to you. They're going to ask you some questions, guiding them through that process. And we also get involved, the Family Justice Center as well. And if the person is interested, then we are guiding them through that process, through the criminal justice process, through, let's say this person is the sole breadwinner. Now they can't come to the house because of an order of protection. What kind of support do the survivor and the kids need? So what we're doing is having more support, bringing more awareness to the community. And this is an awesome platform for us to do that for the community, to give them all the information and for them to reach out and let people know about the services. And, if somebody were to reach out to you and your organization, knowing that you can reach out to us and we can, work together in giving the survivor all the information and the support they need.
Well, that's good to know. Are there advocates that actually assist a domestic violence victim to family court or to criminal court? Because a lot of times the victims are terrified to go to court by themselves because the abuser will antagonize them while they're in court or even as they're leaving the courts.
Yes. So there is case managers can do court accompaniment and go to court and be there. And it's more about a support, letting the abusive partner know that this person is not alone, that they have support, that they are getting all the information that they need. We also have, so if someone at the Family Justice Center is interested in petitioning for an order of protection in family court, they can petition through the Family Justice Center. An advocate files the petition directly to court. And if the survivor is too afraid to appear and go to family court personally, they can appear virtually, either through the Family Justice Center when we're open, or right now through COVID, they can appear virtually as well. So they don't have to be in the same room with the abusive partner.
Well, that's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
And during the COVID, for months, family courts were closed. So if a domestic violence victim wanted and needed to get an order of protection through family court, how were the order protections given?
So family court was not closed. The family court was physically, the building was closed, but all the operations are open. And us, the Family Justice Center, have been open as well, virtually. So anyone petitioning for an order of protection was getting that assistance from a case manager with the Family Justice Center, filing the petition, making sure that an attorney reviewed the petition, sending it to court, and then everything is being done virtually, either via video or over the phone. So people that need orders of protection are getting them.
Okay, through family court, they were able to.
Through family court, yes.
Family court, okay. Because I think that was one of the questions that I was asked. How can they get an order of protection through family courts because the courts were closed? So
Yeah, physically the courts are closed, but not, their operations are still open. One thing would be best for a survivor to reach out to a family justice center in whichever borough. And, you know, we can figure out if it's in the Bronx or if it's in Brooklyn and Staten Island, they can reach out. We are answering our phones 9 to 5. We also have a hotline that they can reach out to 24 hours, and we'll give them guidance on how to go forward with petitioning for an order of protection.
So the 24-hour hotline,
Mm-hmm.
you would speak with a live domestic violence counselor?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a recorded
No.
message.
No, it's 24 hours. They can reach out over the phone. There's also a text option, like a chat option online that they can do that with Safe Horizon. So they can also chat with them.
Okay. So is it possible for an abuser to change? And what are the percentage of domestic violence abusers changing and just recovering through therapy, counseling, rehabilitation?
Zena, so I'll let you take that over.
Yeah, thank you, Janir. Well thought out answers. So in terms of percentage of abusers that change, we don't have that kind of data. I can definitely ask around and find more data on that, but we don't have a statistic as to how many abusers change. As I said before, it's all up to that abuser as to whether they would like to change to the various resources that we have available. And your question regarding when can, how can you tell whether an abuser is going to change? I mean, it varies tremendously as to whether the abuser themselves would like to change and would like to hold themselves accountable. We have intervention programs and we have therapy sessions. There are therapeutic sessions, a varied resources that an abuser can definitely reach out and seek help.
Well, that's good to know. Also, what can we do to help domestic violence victims in our communities?
There's many things. Really, one is learning about domestic violence, what it does, what the warning signs are, what the resources that are available, like the resources that I'm sharing right now for any abuser or victim that is trying to seek help. We offer educational training workshops to youth. We have an academy workshop that really reaches out to youth and their parents about what healthy relationships look like. Me, myself, and my team reach out to almost anybody in the public to educate them about what domestic violence is and what it looks like. From community boards to city council members to people or a nonprofit organization such as yourself, basically always trying to reach the very people that are on the ground, speaking with those survivors or on the ground in close proximity to the survivors. We try to share flyers. We have our flyers of contact information on them that we share to food banks. We share to food banks, salons, cosmetologists, anybody who is really on the ground and catering to those underserved communities, as well as to anybody who may be experiencing domestic violence. The first thing I would always say to anyone that is or knows of anyone experiencing domestic or gender-based violence is to really form that close relationship and try to gain trust from that individual and speak, so that way they're more likely to speak to you about their experiences at home. Forming that trusting relationship can better make it easier for for a victim to come and ask for help. And then from there, it would be as simple as reaching out to the resources that I have provided here, which I'm happily able to email you later on.
Now, we have several domestic violence organizations that are supposed to advocate for victims of domestic violence, such as escorting them to family court, to the Justice Center, to criminal court. Do you have a list of agencies that actually work with domestic violence victims? Because sometimes when a domestic violence victim will reach out to certain organizations, they're being told, well, that's not what we're supposed to do. We can't escort you to court. That's not our job description. And I think that organizations need to be accountable in terms of letting the community know specifically what their services entail and advocating for victims of domestic violence. Because I understand that it's very difficult for a domestic violence victim to navigate family court, housing court, trying to find an attorney to assist her through or assist him through all the legal ramifications that they might be going through. Some organizations do offer, like the Legal Aid Society will offer legal assistance, but some of them don't. They'll tell the domestic violence victim, well, that's not in our criteria. We are not able to offer that particular service, but then don't refer them to another agency stating that, well, I can't help you, but if you call this organization, they might be able to help you. Have you been realizing that DV victims are going through situations like that?
I have experienced a survivor who has been told, just like you were informed, that the Family Justice Center was not the Family Justice Center, the family court was closed when it wasn't. It was open. So what we really do spread correct and accurate information to anybody servicing domestic or gender-based survivors. So that can be to the NYPD, to nonprofit organizations such as yours, to CBOs, to community boards, to city councils, to make sure that the resources that are available are being told and accurate and being told accurately. So from family justice centers, they do provide legal and civil counseling. So that is something that we do, that at the family justice centers we do provide. We have a case manager for each client that does always coordinate between the with a survivor on what tasks needs to be done and how they can go about court. And so that is a service we do provide. In terms of a survivor always having to call an organization and double check as to whether they provide their services. What I can say is the best option is to contact those organizations instead of having to go to them in person and inquire as to whether they provide those services first initially. If not, to always go on a New York City Hope portal, and there are myriad number of organizations that are most likely will be able to assist the client in terms of
They can also reach out to the Family Justice Center. One of the things that our office does is, we help coordinate and help people collaborate. So they can definitely reach out if they're having any issues like connecting with an organization, or they're getting the runaround. They can reach out. We're there to advocate for them and make sure that services are available. So they can, the community can reach out to us. A survivor can reach out to us. Like organizations can reach out to us if they're also getting the runaround. We're there to support and create these relationships, so that people can get the services that they need.
Well, that's very important to know, because domestic violence victims feel like they're going through their domestic violence situations alone. And I think that if organizations like myself
Mhm.
who can advocate for domestic violence victims and their children by offering their services, because sometimes they just need someone to talk to. And a lot of times domestic violence, it's embarrassing. You don't want to tell your family members that you're going through a domestic violence situation. So you keep it in and you stay and you cover up the abuse. But sometimes if they're able to reach out to someone that they feel that really cares about what they're going through, and that they know I can call Miss Zena, or I can, call Miss Smith and say, listen, I need just to be able to have a couple of hours to myself so I can run around. Are there any services right now in place in terms of respite care for the children of domestic violence victims?
Not necessarily like through us, through the Family Justice Center, but there are organizations like New York Foundling. There are different organizations that do provide respite care, but because of COVID, we don't know exactly to the extent that they're able to provide those services. But with the case manager or the advocate who's assigned to the case, that's something that the survivor and the case manager can look into. And, they can, us at the Family Justice Center. So one of the things about it is that I work for the Mayor's Office to End Domestic and Gender-Based Violence. So Zena and I are colleagues. However, I'm stationed at the Family Justice Center in Staten Island, and I'm part of the administration there. So one thing that we do is that we provide support to case managers and to advocates. If they are reaching out to organizations or they have survivors coming in with certain needs that they're not getting, the case manager reaches out to the administration of the center, and we come together and we talk about it. What are the different resources? Where can we connect this person? Is this person connected in their community? Is there organizations like your organization that can help out and let us know the lay of the land so that we can connect them and do the advocacy. So we do a lot of that, a lot of research and calling and all that stuff.
Yes, because that's very important. I just feel that the community on whole, the private sector, the non-for-profit sector, they need to come together to try to help a domestic violence victim. I know people say, oh, I don't want to get involved, that's not my problem. But I feel that it is our problem, because anyone can be a domestic violence victim. It doesn't discriminate. Domestic violence does not discriminate. And I think right now, with the abusers being in close quarters with their abuser, it makes it more difficult to get out. But if that mother knows, okay, I can leave my child in that daycare free of charge for 3 hours so I can go to therapy, I can go to the doctor, I can seek counseling, I can get an order of protection, maybe that would alleviate some of the stress that household is experiencing, because I don't think anyone really wants to be a domestic violence abuser. I'm not going to sit here and make up excuses for them, but I just feel that more services needs to be offered to the community for the abusers and also for the domestic violence victim. So I think that we all need to work together. The Justice Center, they have done a great job in terms of working with DV victims. And I commend your office for that. So now we just have to work with the housing court, criminal court, New York City PD, because sometimes when you have a domestic violence victim who has an order of protection that is telling the New York City police officer, listen, he cannot come back in my home. I have an order of protection in my hand. He's not supposed to be here. Then he gets a protection or a housing court decision and say, well, he can come back in the home. A lot of times the New York City police officers, they're confused. They'll say, well, I don't even know which order to respect. Because on one hand, he's saying that he's supposed to be in a home because he has a court order that says he can be in the home. She has an order of protection that says that he can't be in a home. What do I do? So we all of our courts need to come together and have a central based system that a police officer can look at an order of protection, respect. I think the order of protection should trump any other decisions that is given. And a housing court judge should not give an abuser the right to enter back in that home, especially if an order of protection was presented to her before she made her decision. So how often do you see cases like that within the Justice Center?
You know, everybody's situation is different. And that's why we ask, you know, community members like yourself to reach out to let us know how we can help and guide you if you have a relationship with a survivor, or if the survivor reaches out and says, this is what's going on. You know, like I said before, we connect them right away to a case manager. That case manager is really going in depth to find out what's going on, what's the history, and what are the needs that are that this person is going to need, the needs that they are going to need and their family. Right. And then really coordinating, you know, if there is criminal court involvement. Okay, so let me reach out to the assistant district attorney. And with our help, they can do that. Let me reach out to, you know, I've been going to the precinct and this police officer, you know, tells me I can't make a police report, or this person can be in the house. We're there to help inform and to figure out, okay, so let me get a copy of the order of protection. Let me see what it says. Let's figure out the interpretation, because there is orders of protection, but, you know, it is hard for when there's housing court involved, when there's family court involved, when there's criminal court involved, and then the police officers left to interpret all this legal work. You know, they're not attorneys, they're not judges. So the idea of the Family Justice Center is that we're all in one location, and that we're all able to, you know, get involved in the situation and figure out and guide each other in the different pieces that the survivor needs.
Well, I have to really say, once again, the officers at the Justice Center, the Bronx Justice Center, they do a phenomenal job. I have to really say that they really go beyond the call of duty. And I think that they need to be commended to what they have done. And I just feel that if New York City police officers would take the time out as the Justice Center's police officers, because within each Justice Center, they're all officers within Justice Centers. So that is definitely a plus. And I think that more officers need to be trained to spot the signs and know how to advocate and just let the abuser know, listen, you know what? Your abuse is not going to be tolerated. Okay. So with that being said, is there a possibility that the Justice Center can reach out to the commissioner, the police commissioner, let him know the severity of the cases? Because I don't feel that the New York City police officers, I'm not going to say all of them, but most of them are just very nonchalant when it comes to domestic violence, especially when it comes to African-American and Latino women here in the Bronx.
Yeah.
They don't take it as seriously as they should.
Yeah. Well, that's like Zena indicated, our office does a lot of training and a lot of collaboration with NYPD, you know, giving them all the information and how to guide a survivor and and what are the certain things that some abusers do abuse the system, and what are those signs. And we have domestic violence police officers at the center for that reason. They are specifically trained in domestic violence and how to handle those cases and how to respond to those cases. And one thing that they mainly do is that they are the liaison at the Family Justice Center, connecting to the precinct, like the local precinct. So, when things are not going well, when a survivor indicates that they haven't gotten the best response, we can't guarantee anything, but we do, reach out to our police officers on site to coordinate and to figure out what's going on. This person has gone to the precinct, they haven't been able to file a police report, or this is the response that they've gotten. That's something that our office with the police officers on site do a lot. We advocate, we figure out what's going on, how can we, figure out the best way for this person to connect.
I think that is a wonderful idea. And I also feel that the time and effort that the officers at the Justice Center have put in to contact the local precinct, to let them know that I have a domestic violence victim here in my office, he or she is going through a situation, why hasn't an arrest been made when the domestic violence abuser has constantly violated this order of protection that was given to her. This is the reason why abusers feel that they can manipulate the system, the police department, family court, housing court, because the New York City Police Department, not all, but we have some officers who are just very nonchalant, and all they do is give the abuser a slap on the wrist and let them go. So what can your office do in terms of making sure that we strengthen, making sure that domestic violence victims feel a lot safer by informing New York City police officer that if they have to go for retraining, is there a domestic violence retraining program that the officers can retrain? This is something that should be implemented. What do you think?
Yeah, that's something that our office works on in doing, awareness, outreach. That's what Zena's office does, like department does. And, members of the community like yourself, letting us know what are the issues, what's going on. You are the eyes and ears of the community, right? So if people are coming to you or you're seeing things, reaching out to our office and letting us know, hey, we would like to do an event. Hey, can we get together and, reach out to this organization and see if we can provide a training, if we can, let them know about what's going on in the community. Zena and her team go out and do community board meetings, right? So they go out and inform community board meetings, and usually NYPD is there and, giving them information about what are you seeing in the community. This is a flyer. Somebody comes up to you, even if you don't know what to do, hey, can you just call, reach out, and we can give you information. Zena, do you have any more thoughts on that?
Well, it's perfect, Janira. And in addition to what Janira is saying, there's also, if there's any issue that there may have been with a police officer, we do have the Civilian Complaint Review Board that is ongoing every month, where anybody can really reach out and complain about any situation that they are enduring. So the forum is available to the public. We also reach out to NYPD precincts in every single borough to let them know about when, for example, when the FJCs are open and how they're operating. We let them know about the family court and whether a survivor can obviously seek an OP, an order of protection. And so there is obviously, we are in such close contact with NYPD that we always continuously create this dialogue and create awareness amongst all partners within FJC and out in the broader spectrum of the mayor's office. And so if there's ever any issue a survivor is experiencing, they can obviously inform the case manager, and the case manager can do all the troubleshooting and the coordination necessary to make sure that the issue is being touched on and monitored.
Is there any monitoring within the NYPD to make sure that NYPD have domestic violence officers on site and that they're actually doing their job? Is there anyone going in and checking their roster to see how many domestic violence cases has been called within that particular precinct?
So yes, we do get our data from NYPD. They do inform us about the statistics in terms of domestic violence happening within each borough. Unfortunately, due to that it is from the NYPD, I can't divulge that statistical data. So if you yourself are interested, feel free to reach out to NYPD and ask them if they can see the domestic violence records that are happening that are within each borough. But there definitely is a domestic violence police officer within each precinct that does specifically cater to domestic violence survivors. So they do understand the confidentiality that needs to happen within the victim if they are, for example, in the home and the abuser's there as well. So they are very well trained, and we are always in coordination with them.
Are they training every month for domestic violence police officers? Because I think within every organization it's always good to retrain and re-educate yourself in terms of how to handle domestic violence cases. Does your office offer training to the New York City Police Department?
So I myself would not know exactly if there is a training every month happening with domestic violence police officers. I can surely ask and then get back to you about that question.
Because I think some police officers are going through domestic violence cases themselves, and some of them are also abusers. So if your office can spot a potential domestic violence abuser or even victim, that might deter an officer being a domestic violence officer. So training should be held every month or every 3 months for officers so they can know how to handle domestic violence cases and be a little bit more sensitive. Because sometimes officers do not know how to handle domestic violence cases because they weren't taught. So that's something that should be addressed within the near future, especially now that the domestic violence case has risen here in the Bronx.
I don't know the exact amount of times they've been trained, so it's definitely something I will get back to you on with more accurate data. But it is, if there is ever in a situation where a victim does not believe a police officer is giving him or her accurate information, please do call the FJCs. We are there to always troubleshoot, coordinate with the NYPD, coordinate with the domestic violence police officers to make sure whatever information is being distilled is actually correct. And also one more thing to pinpoint, as you said, if a victim is experiencing abuse by a police officer, for example, it is important to understand that the family justice centers have high confidentiality standards that the victim is safe to go to the FJC and keep the information of her abuse confidential from that abuser, because he is an NYPD. So we won't obviously disclose that information of her abuse to any police officers if she does not feel safe to do so.
So how would her case be handled if she's married to a police officer and he is abusing her? How would that particular case be handled within your office?
So if a survivor comes in and indicates that their abusive partner is the police officer, our centers are client-centered, so it depends on the survivor what kind of services they want to engage in. if they indicate, you know, I made a police report and nothing happened, I, you know, want to see what happens with that. Can somebody figure out what happened to that police report? I made it and nothing happened. Or people can, officers came to my house, and because my partner is a police officer, they didn't do anything. They just left. So, we let the survivor guide whatever services they want. But if they want to engage with our NYPD officers, they can. And our NYPD officers are a separate unit. They are NYPD officers, but once that happens, it goes into another, like an internal investigation unit. Our officers are there to give that information to the survivor and connect them to that unit, and letting them know they can reach out. You can call this unit and let them know that your partner is a police officer and nothing was done, or a report was taken and nothing happened after that report. So, and we're there also helping them out connect with that bureau.
And with that being said, if there's a NYPD detective that fails to investigate a domestic violence situation and you reported it to the Civilian Complaint Bureau, how is that case handled?
We don't know. NYPD has their own internal, investigation and also operations. However, we can definitely give out information on how to reach the Civilian Complaint Review Board, how to, file a report against NYPD. We can give them all that information and all the phone numbers that they can reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a form online of the Civilian Complaint Review Board where anybody can fill out, and then further investigation would happen from submitting that online form. So that's just the initial basis of how to make sure that our inquiries are being responded.
I think sometimes when domestic violence victims report a police officer or detective for not doing their job, they feel that the detective will retaliate, or that officer might retaliate against them, and by forcibly arresting them or just constantly bringing the abuser back in the home. And so once you report it again to, let's say, another police officer, a high-ranking police officer, and you tell them, listen, this is what I'm going through. This is what happened. I reported Detective so-and-so, and now because of my report with the civilian complaint, he retaliated against me by doing X, Y, and Z. So how would that be handled within your office? Because yes, they do want to do the right thing. They're a victim of domestic violence. You go through all the proper protocols, all the proper channels to keep their family safeguarded. But if you go to the one person that you feel is supposed to protect you, which is an NYPD officer, NYPD detective, and they fail to do that, and then if they fail to do that, you report that they failed to do that, then they retaliate against you by falsely arresting you and constantly letting the abuser back into your home, laughing about it, telling the officers, well, bring him back in the home, let him back in the home. He has the right to be there. That's his place. How does a domestic violence victim then protect herself now? Because now she's in a home with the abuser, even though she has an order of protection, there's kids there. You report it now to the detective, and the detective laughs it off and says, well, that's his home. He can be there if he wants to. And you say, no, well, I have an order of protection that states that he can't be in my home. How can she safeguard herself from that?
Well, one thing is, aside from the Civilian Complaint Review Board, a survivor can reach out to the Commission to Combat Police Corruption and file a complaint. And that is it's an internal affairs bureau that they investigate what's going on. And that, the the survivor can do it confidential, not giving their information. And the Internal Affairs Bureau will then start an investigation.
And is there anyone within your office that work within the housing court? Because as you know, an abuser will manipulate housing court to try to get back in the home with the victim. So is there any liaison within housing court that reviews domestic violence cases, that knows that there's a domestic violence case going on with that particular victim, domestic violence victim, that is in housing court, that has an order of protection, that's trying to get the abuser out of the home, but the abuser knows that he or she's not supposed to be there, but because the abuser knows that there's a loophole within the housing court system, they manipulate and use the housing court to stay in the home to constantly abuse the victim. Is there a system in place right now to protect the domestic violence victim? And
well, one thing that Zena indicated, we have civil legal attorneys at all the family justice centers that provide free consultation and advice to clients, and limited representation, but everyone gets a consultation and advice on their situation. And we also have housing attorneys that can provide that advice, the consultation. They can also provide representation if they can, and they can take on the case. And they're housing attorneys, but with the lens of like domestic violence. So they work with our office. We do cross trainings, and they know the need and the sensitivity that is needed to work with survivors of domestic violence.
Well, that's good to know, because I think when a domestic violence victim is going through a traumatic situation, trying to make sure she keeps a roof over her head for her children and trying to keep her children safe is very difficult for a DV victim to obtain an attorney. So how and what resources is there available in housing court that a DV victim can obtain free of charge to help her to process whatever necessary paperwork to inform the judge that this is what the domestic violence victim is actually going through, Your Honor, and this domestic violence victim should not be reunited with the abuser. The abuser should not be let back into the home under any circumstances, because I think that this is what has been happening within the housing court.
Well, we can't guarantee anything, and we can't guarantee representation, but as our advocates, our case managers, they're really there to empower survivors and give them the information, also reaching out to a housing attorney and getting some advice, having the survivor get a consultation and figure out what's their best option and what to ask for and what to say when they go to housing court. So that's something that we can do. We can't guarantee representation, but we can definitely, give information and, help the survivor advocate for themselves as well, because, not always, the case manager might not always be able to go with them to every court appearance, but if the survivor knows and has the information, they can feel empowered and be able to request things that they need.
I also think that our community needs to also know that if they have to appear in housing court or family court by themselves, they can ask the court officer for an assistant to escort them to the floor within the court system, because 9 times out of 10, the abuser is in family court or in housing court, and they might come across each other in the hallway, and the abuser might try to verbally attack the victim. So my question to your organization is there anyone within the housing court or family court that is there to give informational material out to let our community know that if you're going through a domestic violence situation, pick up one of our pamphlets. We have pamphlets over here throughout the courts. Pick it up and read it. If you need any services, if you need any help, this is what you can do. You can reach out to the Justice Center, because I think a lot of domestic violence victims do not know or do not even have a clue that there are services available to assist them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all family courts have like a help center that they have pamphlets, they have people there giving information. Our office provides pamphlets, flyers to family court, to housing court, letting them know. And survivors, you know, if they are feeling that they're being attacked, reach out to the court officer, reach out to, you know, go to the help center. Usually there's advocates around. You know, that's not a guarantee that there's always going to be an advocate, but, you know, reaching out and figuring out, asking a court officer, is there an advocate here? Is there somebody I can speak to?
Right.
One thing is that in family court, Safe Horizon also usually has an office there. Hey, I don't feel safe staying in the waiting area. Can I go sit in the Safe Horizon office until my case is called? You know, the court officer can definitely, you know, coordinate that and you know, get that person to the Safe Horizon office.
Does your office work closely with the court officers in family court to let them know that if a domestic violence victim is needs assistance to be escorted upstairs or to be escorted out the building, is it possible you can wait with her until the cab come and then go back into the building? Because I think sometimes when you have a domestic violence victim, she's scared to actually wait in front of the family court, because then the abuser will come out and start an argument or verbal altercation, and the court officers are inside, so they don't have a clue of what's going on the outside. But do you have resources available? Do you have advocates that work closely with the court officers, explaining to them the situation in hand that is going on, to let them know they can assist the victims?
We don't have advocates like dedicated to that. You know, when a survivor is connected to services, to a case manager, that case manager is, like I said, their hub. That's their person. And we encourage survivors to really let the case manager, the advocate, know what's going on. You know, when I go to court, the person waits for me a block away. Let the advocate know, so then the advocate can reach out to either the client's attorney and figure out a plan. The attorney can then reach out to the court officer and figure out a plan. Okay, so we're going to dismiss this case, but we're going to let the abusive partner leave 20 minutes before, right? And we're going to hold the survivor here for 20 minutes to, you know, make sure that there's no overlap time. So really the case manager and the advocate, also, you know, your organization, reaching out, letting us know if the survivor doesn't feel comfortable engaging in services with the Family Justice Center or with any other DV organization, but feels comfortable with you, then reach out to us, and you know, we can give you those ideas. You know, this person said this. Hey, how about let's reach out to a court officer and let's tell them what's going on. Let's figure out a plan for the next time when this person is in court. So things like that, we ask that, you know, reach out, let us know. We're always available to hear what's going on and to come up with ideas. You know, we don't have all the answers. You as a community member knows exactly what's going on. And if a survivor feels comfortable coming to you, we definitely can give you the ideas, the resources for you to be able to help.
Do you have a lot of cases of domestic violence on elder abuse as well? Elder abuse, domestic violence abuse? within the elderly community? And is there a separate unit that just handles elder domestic violence abuse?
I don't have numbers on that, but we do have organizations that, either work at the Family Justice Center or are an off-site partner that work specifically with the elder population.
And also the military. I don't want to forget the men and women that have served our country and that have returned home, and they might be going through a domestic violence as well. Does your office handle that, or that goes directly to the Veterans Administration?
Yeah, that is handled by the military. However, Zena, my office, my center, all the centers, we do a lot of outreach. We do a lot of trainings, provide a lot of awareness and information for them to know. So we encourage the military to reach out with any questions or any situations, and to refer survivors to us.
So if a military veteran comes into your office, would you refer them to the VA? Because I know we have a VA here in the Bronx. Or would you handle their needs?
It depends. So we are client centered. We give them all the information, and it depends, where they would like to get services. If they say, we can give them the information to the VA and they say, hey, I've reached out and I haven't had a great experience with that, or that's something that I really don't want to do. We have to respect that. And, we can provide services. So we provide services to everyone. It doesn't matter.
Oh, that's good to know. And so if someone has any questions, is there a number that they can call?
Yes. So Zena is going to send you all the information, like the resources. Every Family Justice Center, we have a phone number that you can reach out to us and, ask questions and let us know. We are answering phones 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And then you can also reach out to the hotline 24 hours.
I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're open Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Right now, the only change is that we're doing it over the phone. So you would have to call the Family Justice Centers in order to be serviced. With one exception for the Manhattan Family Justice Centers, that center is open Monday, Wednesday, Friday for physical appointments, for physical in-person appointments. But those have to be made over the phone as well. So the way to reach out to them is also by calling them. And
do you also have domestic violence Zoom conference with clients?
Yeah. So yes. So there are organizations that provide their sessions via Zoom. Mm-hmm.
Is there a specific organization that someone could reach out to contact?
No, there isn't. If a survivor feels comfortable, has a safe place to do that, if the organization doesn't have the capability, either the organization or the survivor can reach out to the Family Justice Center and we can, figure that out. Like Zena said, the Manhattan Family Justice Center is open Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays by appointment only. So let's say a survivor, can't talk on the phone and can't speak from their house, but can, find, but needs, to speak to somebody, we can set them up at the Manhattan FJC virtually, and they can talk to a survivor, or, they need a phone, so we can provide that space for them. But that all needs to be arranged over the phone with appointment.
Correct.
So the Manhattan Justice Center is open. Why is the Bronx not open?
Well, the thing is that all of our spaces are different. Because of COVID and the CDC guidelines, everything has been, there's a lot of restrictions. So because the Bronx is not open now, doesn't mean that it's not going to be open. It's just that we have CDC guidelines that we have to abide by, and it takes, steps. So right now, the Manhattan FJC was the one that was, prepared for a while, and was able to open the doors because of the CDC guidelines that we were able to put in place.
So within maybe another couple of months or next year, the Bronx office will be open, because some domestic violence victims, especially the ones that have small children, it's difficult for them to travel to Manhattan. So is there a van pickup service that maybe can pick up the domestic violence victims and their children and bring them to the center if they made an appointment?
There's no guarantee. However, we ask that survivors reach out to the Bronx FJC. Somebody's answering those phones, and they can let them know, I need to get to the Family Justice Center physically. This is my issue. They, assess the situation and figure that out. We either get organizations that are able to provide transportation. Our office, we try our best to be able to provide transportation if that's something that's needed.
Okay, well, I'm very happy that I was able to have this discussion with you ladies, because once again, we have domestic violence victims that are suffering, that have questions, that have asked me questions, and I've been trying my very best to answer the questions. Some questions I'm able to assist them with, and some questions I had no idea. But I'm happy that you were able to put clarity on the services that are available. And I'm hoping through this forum, we're able to just implement more services that is greatly needed, because I am the eyes and ears of the community. And I have been a domestic violence advocate for 3 years now. I actually started as a child care advocate almost 20 years ago, back in 1998, in memory of Amy Burney. But now that I'm realizing the need for advocacy to help domestic violence victims and their families and the surviving domestic violence victims, this is something that needs to be addressed. And I'm hoping that more services will be put into place to help them going forward. I just don't feel that domestic violence should be just once a month. I feel like this dialogue should be every month, because domestic violence is not just in October. Every single day a woman is being murdered or being abused. And more spotlight needs to be put on the issues that is plaguing our community. It's hard enough that family members are losing their loved ones due to the COVID. Now they're having to deal with a domestic violence issue. They're having to deal with housing issue. They're having to deal with food insecurity. So going forward, is there any new implications that our commissioner, Cecile Noel, is planning on implementing going forward? And if you can't answer that question, that's fine, because I know you can't speak for your boss. But going forward with our discussion, are there any issues that you are willing to address to her, to let her know, as an activist in the community, as a stakeholder in my community here in the Bronx, I am on the front line seeing face to face what is happening and the destruction that is afflicting my community here in the Bronx.
Yeah, you're right, Heather. We can't speak for the commissioner, but that's why we are here. And Zena is a community liaison to connect with you, to get all your questions and anything that she can't answer, bring it back to the office, and get you the answers that you need, and stay connected, and make sure that you have the resources that you need to be able to give that information to your community.
And as you know, that a lot of our young people, some of them are doing remote learning.
Mhm.
I just feel that issues of domestic violence needs to be addressed at a very young age. It starts from elementary school, junior high school, high school. Are there any programs going forward that we can have an advocate from your office go into the schools and educate young people on domestic violence, on the warning signs of domestic violence, have programs in place to inform our young boys and our young girls that they should not tolerate being abused and they should not be an abuser? Are there any programs presently being put together to present to our school children?
Yes, Heather, excellent question. So as I said, we do have the Healthy Relationship Training Academy, where we have trainers and educators reaching out to students, schools, and parents, and also now since this transition to virtual, that we are also doing virtual educational workshops to help train and educate the youth at a very young age, so that way they understand what healthy relationships looks like, and to really prevent any signs or any future possible abuse that may occur in their own lives. And so we do offer that, and I do agree with you tremendously that it is best to educate our young ones at an early age to make sure that they're more aware of what healthy relationships is like, and not to be a victim or an abuser of it.
Yes, that is very important. Well, I thank you ladies so much for your time. And for all the guests that are listening, I thank you. And I'm hoping to have more dialogue on this issue. And hopefully the next time when we do meet, when we do speak, some of the issues that was addressed would be implemented in the services that your office provides to the community. I'm hoping that.
Yes,
So
thank you. Thank you
I'll
for the invitation.
Oh, you're more than welcome. And thank you for taking time out of your day, out of your schedule, to educate the community on the services that your office offers. Hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Have a safe weekend. Stay dry. Okay.
Yes.
And I'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Again.
Have a great day.
Yes, thank you. Take care. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.